Hi guys, and welcome back to Tish Does Travel. It is my favourite time of foraging season because it's elderflower season. This has got to be my favourite and easiest thing that you can forage. There is so many yummy recipes that you can make out of this, and today we're going to be making cordial, and we're also going to be making or attempting Turkish delight. I've made the cordial before, but the Turkish delight is definitely a first for me, so fingers crossed that goes well. In today's video I'm going to show you where you can find elderflower, what you need to look out for when you're foraging it, and also we're going to be making cordial and we're going to be attempting to make Turkish delight. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching, and if you do like foraging content like this, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Plus, make sure you give me all of your elderflower recipes down below. Okay, let's get into it.
Look ahead, the sea is calm, and I know we've been through a lot, but just wait. Wait for better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails.
So I guess the first question to start with is, how do you actually identify elderflower and how do you find it? So this is elderflower here. You'll see it's tiny little white flowers, and then they've got little kind of centres of yellow as well, and before they've bloomed you'll see there's kind of like little pods, and then as they bloom into flowers, and then the flowers will drop off, and then later on these are going to turn into elderberries. What I will say is there's not a huge amount you can confuse elder with, especially if you smell it, because it will smell of elder. However, elder grows on trees like this. So just behind me we've got this big tree that I found in the forest. It often grows on roadsides as well, a lot, but of course roadsides are hard to get to. However, the main things that you can confuse it with are things that grow from the ground, so things like cow's parsley, but there is some deadly things like hemlock which grow from the ground, which you could confuse it with, which have these kind of white heads. Luckily this time of year, the stuff that you could confuse for elderflower, like this, which I believe is cow parsley, so as you can see this is growing for the ground, but a lot of it has actually died out, so it's not as white as it is kind of early on in the summer. But this here, so this is not elder, because as you can see it's growing up from the ground, but you have got a couple of elderflower trees back there, so as you can see they're actually growing up and out of trees, and then you've got the big white heads on top. Also there's not quite as much pollen in these either, they're very white, so you haven't got those kind of yellow bits of pollen on them. So just make sure when you're picking elder, you're choosing it from a tree, and then give it a little smell, and then if you can smell elder, then you're confirmed that that is elder, and you can go ahead and you can snip off the heads. So when you are choosing your elderflower, what I would say is it's a good idea just to turn it over and just check the plant to see how many bugs there are on it, because you don't actually end up washing elderflower. So what I would say is try to pick pieces that aren't covered in bugs. Sometimes they can be absolutely covered in aphids, and it's just really difficult when you go to clean them later. So try to, where you can, pick ones which are nice and clean. Each one of my recipes, so both the Turkish delight and the elderflower cordial, it calls for 20 heads of the elderflower. Hopefully I've got enough in here, I think I do, but I also want to make a second cordial as well. As I mentioned, I have also got the pineapple weed here, so I really want to mix that in with one of the cordials and just see what it's like to have an elderflower and pineapple cordial. You can actually put the elderflowers straight in with the sticks, because essentially we're going to drain it off regardless, so it doesn't really matter if these do go into your cordial. The only thing is the stems and some of the leaves, I believe, these actually hold a tiny weeny bit of, I believe it's arsenic. So obviously the amount that we're making is never ever going to damage you, but the best thing in my opinion is to just take a fork and you can just pull the flowers off of the fork, but don't worry too much if a few of the little stems end up in there, but just try to get the majority of the flowers off of the big parcel stem.
I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This This vision that I saw is getting closer every day.
I've now taken all of my elderflower sprigs off of their stalks, and also I've mostly picked off the top of the pineapple weed. And the plan is to do 40% of what's in here, or roughly 40%. I'm going to do it by eye. That's going to go into the Elderflower Cordial. The other 40% is going to go into the Turkish Delight, and then the other 20% of the elderflowers that is left over, that's what I'm going to put together with the pineapple plant, because I don't know how that's going to turn out. And we're going to do a slightly smaller batch for the pineapple and elderflower cordial. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the cordials first, and then I'll make the Turkish Delight second, because the Turkish Delight is new to me and the cordial I made last year, so I feel pretty confident I can make that. These are my two pans. This is for my elderflower cordial, this is for my elderflower and pineapple cordial. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put roughly about 40% of the elderflower into this part here, and then like I said, I'm going to put 20% of it into this one here. So I think that's probably going to be enough. A little bit more in here. That leaves me with 40% in this bowl, and there is also so much around this bowl, so I'll definitely be using that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add all of these pineapple weeds into there. I'm also going to go ahead and zest 2 lemons into here, and I think I'm going to zest 1 lemon and put it into there.
Hold on tight. I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting...
We need to add some boiling water now, so I'm going to add 1.5 litres of boiling water to the large pan. As I'm doing half amounts, I'm going to put 750 millilitres into the slightly smaller saucepan. With both of those, I'm just going to put the lids on, and I've just turned on both of the pans, and I'm going to leave them to boil for about 10 minutes. After that's been boiling for about 10 minutes, I'm then literally going to turn it off and then leave it overnight. So you're going to let it steep in all of those flavours and let all of the flavours come out of the elderflower and all the different plants. Next up, we're going to start making the Turkish Delight, which I'm a little bit nervous about because I've not actually made Turkish Delight before, but we're going to do it together and we'll see how it comes out. Fingers crossed, because I love Turkish Delight. So first of all, we need to soak the gelatin. So how much gelatin? 20 grams of leaf gelatin. And we want to soak that in cold water to soften. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've just realised that this whole packet, so there's 8 leaves and that's 13 grams. So we're a little bit short on what we need, but I'm just going to reduce all of the measurements very, very slightly to accommodate for having less gelatin. And hopefully that works out. This is actually my first time ever using gelatin, so I hope it doesn't go badly, but that's now submerged in water and we're going to let that soften. The next step, it says to strip all of the elderflower off of its leaves and then put it into a muslin cloth. So I shall go ahead and do that now and then tie up the muslin. The recipe calls for 700 grams of granulated sugar, but like I said, I'm using a little bit less gelatin, so I'm actually going to go for 500 grams instead. Into this saucepan, I have got the 500 grams of sugar and also 250 millilitres of water. And I'm also going to put the juice of 2 lemons in here. You want to stir that continuously until all of the sugar has dissolved. And then once it has dissolved, you then put this aside and leave it to cool. The next part requires 80 grams of corn flour and 80 millilitres of water. So once you've mixed together the corn flour and the water and it's nice and smooth, you can then re-add that to the lemon and water mixture. My only worry is the recipe says that this is only 10 minutes, but also says that you need to leave the lemon water to cool. So I'm not too sure how it could cool in that time. It says you want to take the gelatin and squeeze out any of the water And then with the gelatin that we've squeezed out of the water, it says to then add to the mixture and stir with a balloon whisk until the gelatin has dissolved. I think at this point, whilst you're just dissolving the gelatin, you don't actually want this to be boiling. You just want it to be gently being heated. Now you want to go ahead and you want to pop your elderflower into the mixture, which has gotten really thick. I don't know if it's supposed to be this thick. It's also going to be really hard to get around the elderflower whilst it's this thick. It does feel like something has gone wrong and it's thickened up a lot quicker than I expected it to. Now, the only thing where I don't think this is the best recipe is this seems crazy to have the elderflower suspended in what is essentially now just like absolute gloop. Because of course this is going to become Turkish delight, so this is so thick. And the problem that I think it is it's really weird to suspend something in gloop. Now, if I was to do this recipe again, and I may even do it if it doesn't come out right, I would definitely be infusing the water that I mixed with the lemon juice to make the whole base. That seems a lot more likely because at the moment, I've just got gloop all over the muslin cloth and I'm trying to kind of squeeze out any flavour, but I don't think anything's going to be penetrating it, so we'll wait and see. I think maybe the flavour's going to be really, really minute. But yeah, if I try it again, I think I'm going to try infusing the water that I mixed to make the Turkish delight, rather than infusing it when it's already gloopy. Annoyingly, I haven't got any baking paper. That's something that I forgot about, but I've lined a tin with tin foil. And then this is a mixture of baking soda. What is it called? Corn flour and also icing sugar. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to line the tray with this. I did forget to give you a final update on the Turkish delight. Now, I'm pleasantly surprised considering I thought this was a complete no-go. So from when I left off filming, because I don't think it was the best tutorial, because to be honest, I didn't properly follow the instructions, but I continued by just emptying it into a pan, letting it cool and then putting it into the fridge. And then this is what I have got. So it is reminiscent of a Turkish delight, and I am actually very surprised. There's quite a lot of elderflower flavouring in there, so I was worried with it being so thick whether the elderflower flavour would actually have a chance to penetrate. But it has actually done a really good job. I know where I went wrong. I think everybody watching this knows where I went wrong. But basically what the problem was is when you have the lemon and sugar water and you're dissolving that, you then have to let it cool. But because I was being impatient, I didn't let it cool. And then when I added the rest of the corn flour and also the gelatin, it hadn't had a chance to cool down, and then you're supposed to heat it back up. So essentially, I just sped up the process way too quickly, and then I didn't actually have a chance to get it thick enough. But I'm actually quite pleased. So, as you can see, it definitely is nearly Turkish delight. I just needed to be a little bit more patient, but this is definitely something I'll be doing again. It's the next morning and now it's time to add our sugar. So the recipe for the large amount of elderflower cordial I'm doing actually does take a whole kilogram of sugar, but I am going to try and tone down the sugar very, very slightly. So I think I'm going to put about 800 grams. I'm hoping everything still stays fine. And then I'm also just going to put a heaped teaspoon of citric acid, one in the big one, and then I'm also going to put a little bit in the small amount as well. And this is going to help kind of reserve it and make sure that it stays good for longer. But I am going to freeze a lot of this into ice cubes, which will kind of elongate how long I can use it for. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I need to do is I need to strain off all of the flowers that I currently have sitting in the water. Also, if anybody was wondering who is making all of the noise, that would be these two. So this is Doug and this is Squirrel, and they desperately want to go outside, so they're letting me know about it. This is a little bit tricky to do because all of my big pans are now being used. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain this one into this slightly smaller pan. So this is my small amount. This is my elderflower and pineapple. So we're going to tip that into there. Make sure you get all of the fruit into the muslin, because then we're going to give this a really good squeeze and just get out all of the flavour. And the same again for my same batch. I'm not even bothering to rinse out my cheesecloth because essentially it's all the same thing. And then this is just my elderflower. So as you can see there, I've got all the elderflower and also the lemons. So if we were doing halves, like I said, we would have been doing a whole kilogram of sugar in here and then 500 grams of sugar in here. But I am going to try and reduce that. So I think I'm going to put just over 3/4 of this sugar into this big one here, and then I'm going to put the remainder in there. I am, however, going to do the right measurements of this. So this is the citric acid. So it's 1 heaped teaspoon into the big one. In fact, I might just do a little bit for luck. And then I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon into the little one. And a little bit for luck. Then we want to go ahead and bring both of those up to the boil again. So they've been brought back up to the boil. I'm going to do the smaller amount of syrup first. So I'm going to do the elderflower and pineapple. I'm just going to pour it into a glass jug first. Both of these have been sterilised, and then I'm going to pour it into the bottle. Perfect. And I'm going to bottle that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing with the elderflower as well.
Hold on tight. I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight.
And actually I've got a little bit left, so I've probably got enough to fill up a couple of my spoon. So there we have it. We have a successful batch of elderflower cordial, a successful batch of elderflower and also pineapple cordial, and we also have some semi-successful Turkish delight, something that I'll definitely be trying to do more of. Maybe I'll even try it with lavender or the classic rose. Have you ever made Turkish delight before? Let me know in the comments down below. But what I do know is this won't be the last time that I'll be using elderflower this year. There's so many more recipes I want to try out. You can actually tempura batter the heads, and you can have those shallow fried. You could also choose to make elderflower prosecco or elderflower champagne, or even just elderflower fizz, which is something that I really want to have a go at. What have you foraged this year, and also have you got any favourite elderflower recipes? Let me know in the comments down below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up, and if you want to see more like this, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and join Tish Does Travel. Until next time guys, see you later.